Lankan expatriates will only be repatriated based on availability of quarantine facilities. A statement from Minister Bandula Gunawardena.
දැන් යම් කිසි රටක ලංකාවට පැමිණෙන්න අදහස් කරන කෙනෙක් ඔබට හෝ මට හෝ අපිට හෝ ලිපි ලිවීමෙන් කිසිම තේරුමක් නැහැ.
Final respects paid to the mortal remains of late Minister Thunderman at the Parliamentary Complex. Maximum retail price of rice changed again. Prices of Nadu and Samba hiked. Kiri Samba prices reduced.
අන්තිමේදී දැඩ්ලිගේ පදේට නටන්න සිද්ධ වුණා ආණ්ඩුවට.
2 elephants fall into the Izedi Canal in Arunagangvilla. Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. You're with me, Charlene Benedict. Starting off first with a look at your local news. The number of COVID-19 patients in Sri Lanka rose to 1,503 after 34 people tested positive for the virus today. According to the Health Ministry, 32 of them were expatriates who had returned to the country, while 2 of them were Navy officers. The Sri Lanka Navy said that 1 Navy officer who tested positive for the virus was a Navy ambulance driver who had been lodged at the Gafur building in Colombo. Accordingly, 200 Navy personnel who were at the Gafur building have been subjected to quarantine within the facility. Meanwhile, official figures show that 748 COVID-19 patients continue to receive treatment at state hospitals. 13 people had recovered from the viral infection today, bringing the total number of recoveries to 745.
150 new COVID-19 cases were reported yesterday, the highest number of COVID-19 patients recorded during a single day. 97 among them had returned from overseas, of which a majority had returned from Kuwait. Of the 465 Sri Lankans who returned from Kuwait on the 20th of May, 313 have tested positive for the virus so far. This trend is witnessed among a majority of those who returned from the Middle East. Directing them to quarantine centers and all related processes are being done with extra care to prevent the spread of the virus. However, all individuals under quarantine must be vigilant in this regard, as the risk of the virus spreading among society still prevails.
The process of repatriating around 41,000 Sri Lankans stranded overseas has become an issue amidst a spike in the number of coronavirus patients among those who returned from Kuwait.
We cannot take them into the country without directing them for quarantine. It is not easy for us to increase the number of quarantine centers as well. The people must understand the situation. A person who hopes to return to the country should not keep on writing us letters, as it does not serve a purpose. They should inform the Sri Lankan foreign missions in those countries. Upon receiving the details of these people, the Foreign Ministry will facilitate the repatriation of these individuals on an order of preference based on their requirements. This will be done by consulting health authorities to decide on matters concerning quarantine facilities. The government has been accused of bringing down 35 people from Seychelles into the country. This is a false statement. The government has not brought down people from Seychelles.
කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය විසින්.
එතකොට ඇමතුමා ආවේ වෛද්‍ය ප්‍රතිකාර සඳහා 35 දෙනෙක් ආවනේ.
ප්‍රතිකාර ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා
It is only the patients who arrive in the country seeking medical treatment and their relatives who have entered the country. These people have come here on airlines operated by their countries by bringing in foreign exchange to the country. There is no point of blaming us for that. We will have to think of new methods to bring in foreign revenue to the country. If that doesn't happen, there will be no money to bring down the necessary goods for the people.
ගෙනීම සඳහා ඔච්ච මුදල් ඇත්තේ නැති වෙනවා.
අමාතුනේ මේ පැමිණෙපු මේ කණ්ඩායම නිරෝධායන ක්‍රියාවලියටත් ලක් වෙනවද?
අවශ්‍යම.
ඒ කියන්නේ දවස් 14.
දවස් 14.
එතකොට අමතුනේ දැන්
ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි වියදම් දරන්නේ.
ඔව් හදිසි ප්‍රතිකාර වලට ආපු කට්ටිය දවස් 14 නිරෝධායනට ලක් කරාම ප්‍රතිකාර ගැනීමේදී ගැටලුවක් මතුවෙන්නේ නැද්ද?
ඒකට අපේ ප්‍රශ්නය නෙමෙයි ඒක. ඒ අයගේ කැමැත්තෙන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන රෝහලේ සෞඛ්‍ය අධිකාරීන්ගේ විධිවිධාන.
මේක හරියට
This is similar to a situation in which a patient who cannot be treated at a rural hospital is being transported in an ambulance to a district hospital. Health tourism has been made available only in countries such as Singapore, UAE, UK and France. Fortunately, Sri Lanka too has been granted an opportunity to implement this.
නමුත් වාසනාවට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවටත් මේ අවස්ථාව දැන් උදා වෙලා තියෙනවා.
ඒකට ඔවුන් කොච්චර කාලයක් නිරෝධායන වෙනවද?
රටේ පවතින නීතිය අනුව
It will take place according to the country's regulations. I am not a security guard to keep watch on how long they would undergo quarantine.
ඒ ගාව කට්ටියලා මුර කරන්න
අද මේ පිරිස දින 14ක් රටේ රැඳී සිටින්නවත් නැතුව ඇති. එතකොට
බය වෙන්න එපා.
Do not be afraid. If they defy the country's laws, they will not be given preferential treatment. Even if the president's son is brought to Sri Lanka, he will have to undergo quarantine.
නිරෝධායන නීතිය වලට යටත් වෙනවා.
Former parliamentarian Sunil Hadunnethi recently said that former State Minister Mahindananda Aluthgamage had remarked on the 25th of this month that bringing down a group of Sri Lankan expatriates who were infected with COVID-19 on the 19th of May was similar to a bomb attack on the country. In a letter to Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, the former parliamentarian said the Janata Vimukti Peramuna expresses its regret and denounces such a statement. The letter notes several matters mentioned by former State Minister Aluthgamage were false. Citing the Sri Lankan ambassador to Kuwait, former parliamentarian Hadunnethi added that out of the 460 people repatriated from Kuwait, only 4 had been hospitalized based on their medical reports and that only 1 person had been infected by COVID-19. He pointed out that this situation has arisen as a result of the lethargic attitude adopted by the government when repatriating Sri Lankan citizens. Accordingly, Hadunnethi said that insulting foreign nations which facilitated in repatriating helpless Sri Lankans is unacceptable. The letter claimed that the government is attempting to halt the repatriation of Sri Lankan citizens who are stranded in other countries based on this incident.
The mortal remains of Minister Arumugam Thondaman was moved to the parliamentary complex this afternoon.
A large group of individuals, including politicians and relatives, were present at the former minister's residence in Rajagiriya to pay their final respects. Subsequently, the remains of the late Arumugam Thondaman was moved to the parliamentary complex. The remains of the former minister were accepted by several politicians, including Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, former Speaker Karu Jayasuriya and former opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, and was thereafter laid on a special platform. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also paid his final respects to the late minister. Thereafter, the remains of the late minister was moved to the party headquarters of the Ceylon Workers' Congress. The final rites of Arumugam Thondaman will be held on Sunday, the 20th of May at Norwood Grounds in Hatton.
The President's Media Division has announced that an island-wide curfew will be imposed on the 31st of May and the 4th of June, as well as the 5th of June.
The curfew on other days will be in effect across the countries only from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. According to the President's Media Division, travelling between districts except for Colombo and Gampaha will be allowed when curfew is lifted.
President's Counsel Sanjeeva Jayawardena said that it would be disastrous if leave to proceed is granted to the petitioners challenging the President's proclamation dissolving Parliament. He was appearing for Venerable Murutetwe Anandathera, an intervening petitioner in the fundamental rights applications being considered before a 5-judge Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya. I attended the hearings of the fundamental rights petitions this morning. Here's a look at what happened. Counsel representing 5 intervenient petitioners made submissions in court today before the 5-judge Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya. Now, all of these 5 intervenient petitioners were against the fundamental rights applications that were filed by the petitioners. Submissions made in court today focused on the 3-month limit for Parliament to reconvene. According to President's Counsel Ali Sabri, this 3-month time limit is only directory and not mandatory, as there are no prescribed consequences written in the Constitution. Also, submissions were made on the powers of the President to handle public finances, and it was submitted in court today that the powers that are vested within the Parliament to handle public finances are now vested in the President during this interim period that Parliament does not function within.
President's Counsel Sanjeeva Jayawardena submitted that the phrase public services is included in both Article 152 of the Constitution, which grants Parliament authority to withdraw sums from the Consolidated Fund, as well as Article 150, Sub-Article 3, which grants the President authority to withdraw funds when Parliament stands dissolved. He cited the appropriation bills for the years 2017, 2018 and the vote on account passed in 2019 and pointed out that capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure and even raising of debt are all included in these documents. He therefore submitted that these powers of Parliament over public finances are transferred to the President during the interim period that the Parliament stands dissolved. He went on to state, quote-unquote, it is ludicrous to suggest that the President cannot raise loans. President's Counsel Jayawardena submitted that the Constitution must be interpreted in a workable manner and it must not be given a restrictive approach. Speaking on the consequences of granting the petitioners leave to proceed, he said that the Elections Commission would continue to further delay recommencing the election process, seeking refuge under the fact that the Supreme Court is indulged in the matter. Appearing on behalf of Dr. Gunadas Amarasekara, President's Counsel Kushan Dialvis submitted that the petitioners have come before court for collateral purposes and are seeking to stutter the country. He pointed out that initially the Elections Commission told court that the elections could be held 70 days after health authorities had given a green light. But now they have changed this stance and announced that the elections process will resume after the Supreme Court gives their determination on this matter. He submitted that the petitioners seem to have the tacit support of the Elections Commission. President's Counsel Gamini Marapana, appearing on behalf of Venerable Atapattu Kande Anandathera, the Adhikarana Sanganayaka Thera of the Malvathu chapter, submitted that a political decision by the President to dissolve Parliament is not justiciable. He added that it is not just and equitable to grant the relief sought by the petitioners. He submitted that if court rules in favor of the petitions, the country will never be able to hold a legal election. The petitions will be taken up for consideration again to grant leave to proceed tomorrow at 10 a.m. Counsel for the intervening petitioners will continue to make submissions tomorrow.
Demonstrations were held at several places today, claiming that many of them have not received the 5,000 rupee allowance.
A group gathered opposite the Gramanilladari office in Soisapura Murotua today to obtain the 5,000 rupee allowance. These locals claim that they were informed a few days ago to arrive at the Gramanilladari office to collect the allowance.
We came here at 6 in the morning and left empty-handed at around 3 in the evening. This is the 7th such day. If they don't have money to pay, they must at least inform us. I have been standing here for the past 6 days. I could not go to work either. I even gave them a number, but in vain.
A local in Dimulagala Polonnaruwa staged a protest atop a roof today, demanding demanding the 5,000 rupee allowance to be paid. According to our correspondent, the protest continued for more than 5 hours.
රුපියල් 5000 දීමනා ජනතාවට දෙන්නේ නැති බැරි මේ වෙලාව අසරණ අයට
පසුගිය සතියේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තියෙනවා.
Last week, the cabinet decided to discontinue the payment of the 5,000 rupee allowance. The decision was based on the letter submitted by the chairman of the National Elections Commission. We wanted to ensure that no complications will prevail in this regard. We are compelled to adhere to the conditions and regulations of the chairman of the NEC because elections have not been held as yet. If the elections are held and a new parliament is established, we can exercise the financial powers without submitting to any conditions of the NEC.
මේන්තුවට අවශ්‍ය කරන ආකාරයට මුදල් බලය හසුරවන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා.
ඊඩාවට පත්වෙච්ච ජනතාවට ලබා දෙන
A question asked by many is, has the National Election Commission played a role in the discontinuation of the distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance to the poor? At any given point, the National Election Commission has not mentioned stopping the distribution of the allowance. What we said was, we had received many complaints that the process of distributing the allowance had been politicized. We urged everyone to refrain from politicizing the process and requested the government to reconsider the distribution of the allowance for June in the event the country had returned to normalcy by then. If the distribution of the allowance is to be continued, we urged everyone to ensure the process will not be politicized, which means pay the allowance only if possible.
අවශ්‍ය නම් දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියන එකයි.
There is a classical saying that the strong do what they can while the weak suffer what they must. Unfortunately, in many parts of Sri Lanka, it appears that the primitive doctrine of might is right is taking root, aided and abetted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Newsfirst correspondent in Hasalaka Mahiyangania came across this story.
Across rural Sri Lanka, innocents continue to suffer while the powerful enjoy the benefits and privileges of the suffering of the poor. In some instances, it is reminiscent of the classical saying, the strong do what they can while the weak suffer what they must.
දුවගේ පපුවේ සිදුරු දෙකක් තියෙනවා. මාසෙන් මාසෙට පේන දිනිය කෙනෙක් කරන් යන්න ඕනේ. මට ගොඩක් වියදම් කරන්න සල්ලි නැහැ රුපියල් 7,000ක් විතර යනවා මාසෙකට. මං වෙලාවකට අරන් නෝගෙන් තියාගෙන ඉන්නවා ගෙදර. ඒ උනාට දරුවා පපුවේ කැක්කුමයි කියලා අඬනකොට මට ගොඩක් බය හිතෙනවා. මේ සංගතේ නිසා මට පේන දිනිය අරන් යන්න විදියක් නැහැ. දරුවා දැන් නිතරම අඬනවා පපුවේ රිදෙනවා කියලා මගේ අතේ සල්ලි නැහැ දරුවට බේත් කරන්න. මාත්‍යා මාළු වෙල්ලන්න යනවා. මාළුවා වෙන්නේ දැසරේ දැල්සේර මිරිලා එන්න වෙලාවකට නිකම්ම අපි බඩගින්න ජීවත් වෙනවා. දැන් ඊයේ රාට කෑවෙත් අර පල්ලෙහා ගෙදර නැත්තම් කෙනෙකුගේ ඥාල් කිලෝ එකක් ඉල්ලන් ගෙනල්ලා. දරුවන්ට දීලා මායි මාත්‍යා බඩගින්න හිටියා. ඊයේ උදේ ඉඳලා මඤ්ඤොත් කල මේ දරුවෝ දුන් දෙනාටම තම්බල දුන්නේ ගන්න.
The strong do what they can, while the weak suffer what they must. Will we allow this to be the sum of our humanity? Will the authorities continue to turn a blind eye to the suffering of our people?
Privilege is when you think that something is not a problem just because it's not a problem to you personally. Do you have 3 full meals a day? Do you have a roof about your head? Are you sure that your children will not starve tomorrow? However, this, what you saw, is the unfortunate plight of many Sri Lankans living right here, right next to us, and we don't see it. Moving on in more local news, the shortage of fertilizer continues to torment farmers across the island. Today, farmers in Kekirava took to the streets demanding for fertilizer.
These
These were the requests made by farmers in Madutugama Kakirawa, opposite the Agrarian Services Centre.
We do not want fertilizer free of charge. Officers at the Agrarian Centre tell us to inform the relevant authorities, but there is no use. We engage in chana cultivation, but how can we cultivate without fertilizer?
Subsequently, the Kakirawa police arrived as well. After police intervention, farmers were allowed to meet with officers of the Agrarian Services Centre. Following claims made by farmers that stocks of fertilizer were available at the centre, police opened it.
We do not come here to stage a protest. Farmers are helpless to the point that they are resorting to theft.
After officials at the centre promised to provide farmers with fertilizer tomorrow, the demonstrators dispersed. While a group of farmers are in the midst of a fertilizer shortage, residents of several villages including Radampola in Dikvalla, Matara are helpless due to the lack of water. The residents of Sidisivalinga, Mudavila Tsunami village and Radampola said water is provided to them on a weekly basis under the guidance of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. When we call the water board, all they say is that they will provide us water. My children were residing at my place for 2 weeks over the past few days. I was so desperate without water. I had to collect water to these buckets and pots. Is this how we are treated? When I complain to politicians, they want us to remain this way for another year. In this state, I would die within a year without water. Although we have no water, water bills have been sent. Newsfirst inquired regarding the matter from the regional engineer of Matara for the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, Chandana Vanigatunga, regarding the matter. He said this complication has arisen since the capacity of water that is purified from the Malimbada Water Purification Centre is insufficient to meet the demand, adding that another year would be required for the capacity to be enhanced. Therefore, these residents would have to suffer without water for another year. I have no way of obtaining water because I cannot carry water. I have chest complications. I cannot solve this issue.
Co-Cabinet spokesperson Minister Ramesh Pathirana today said that Cabinet approval has been granted to import 2,500 dairy heifers from Australia.
Do you remember? The Cabinet has made a decision to import dairy heifers.
Cabinet approval has been granted to a proposal put forward by Chamal Rajapaksa in his capacity as the Minister of Mahaweli Development, Agriculture and Irrigation. That is to import 2,500 dairy heifers from Australia in the near future.
Why did the government make a decision to import dairy heifers?
Around 50 billion rupees flow out of the country to import milk powder. According to the cabinet paper submitted yesterday, the government hopes to increase the amount of daily milk production by 100,000 litres as a result of this investment.
What happened to the dairy heifers who were imported on previous occasions? Do you remember the backdrop amidst which the imports were carried out? Newsfirst revealed the issues pertaining to the importation of dairy heifers in 2014. According to a report released by the National Audit Office in May of 2018, the importation of dairy heifers had taken place in 3 phases. In 2007, the government took its first step towards importing dairy heifers. The exercise was aimed at increasing local milk production, eradicating poverty and ensuring economic development. Accordingly, a proposal had been put forward before the cabinet in 2007 to import 4,000 dairy heifers into the country. According to the Auditor General's report, 1,500 dairy heifers had been imported to the country in 2012 and 2013. After the Good Governance government was voted into power in 2015, the cabinet had approved a proposal to import 2,500 dairy heifers into the country under the second phase of the project. Accordingly, 2,495 dairy heifers had been imported and distributed among dairy farmers. It was in 2014 that a proposal had been put forward to implement the third phase of the project, seeking to import 20,000 dairy heifers. A decision had been made to import 5,000 dairy heifers initially and to import the remaining 15,000 based on the success of the project. It is in keeping with this decision that 1,994 dairy heifers had been imported in 2017. The government of Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Good Governance government had both chosen Velard Rural Exports as the Australian company from which the dairy heifers had been imported. The Auditor General's report in 2018 had highlighted a serious irregularity in the process. The report observed that Velard Rural Exports, which was awarded the first tender in 2007, had been awarded the subsequent tenders by two successive governments without a bidding process. The second phase of the project to import 20,000 dairy heifers had taken place without rectifying any of these mistakes. 3,024 dairy heifers had been imported under the second phase of the project, while reports submitted to the Ministry of Rural Economic Affairs showed that there is a possibility that these heifers could transmit diseases among other cattle. The Auditor General's department observed that continuing to import these dairy heifers against such a backdrop was a serious flaw in the process. However, in May 2018, the government continued to publish newspaper advertisements to import dairy heifers without taking steps to address the initial issues. A presidential commission of inquiry had been appointed under the Good Governance government to inquire into the losses faced by the country's economy and the alleged acts of misappropriation carried out by state bodies. However, the Presidential Commission had only inquired into the dairy heifers that had been imported between 2015 and 2019. Secretary to the Ministry of Livestock, Renuka Ekanayaka, was among those who gave evidence over this case before the Commission. It was revealed before the Commission that the imported dairy heifers had contracted the BVD disease. It was also revealed that there is no mechanism to identify this disease in the country. Australian media too had reported regarding this matter. This was the reply given by the former Auditor General to Australian media.
We have not to do it because it is a failure project. If you say that import from Australia, I think nobody is going to buy it because that message has been spread throughout the country. Everybody knows this problem now.
The members of the opposition are urging the government to focus on projects that are beneficial to the people instead of drawing attention towards failed projects.
Is it reasonable to import 2,500 dairy heifers using the funds of the people, regardless of how many lessons were learned in the past? Therefore, suspend this decision and take the Auditor General's report into consideration. I wish to request the government to take decisions that would be favourable to the country. Use the funds that would be spent to import these dairy heifers in order to uplift the lives of the people.
Prices of rice were amended once again today after the Consumer Affairs Authority amended the maximum retail price which was imposed on rice. According to the amended rates, the price of samba and nadu rice has been hiked, while the price of kiri samba has been reduced.
On the 10th of April this year, an MRP on rice was imposed. According to the newly imposed MRP, the price of a kilo of samba rice and nadu rice was 90 rupees. However, that has been increased a further 8 rupees to 98 rupees per kilogram from today. The price of a kilogram of nadu rice has been increased by 6 rupees from today to 96 rupees. In contrast, the maximum retail price of 125 rupees imposed on a kilogram of kiri samba on the 10th of April has been reduced to 120 rupees. Large-scale mill owners expressed the following sentiments regarding the MRP of rice when officials of the Consumer Affairs Authorities raided several rice mills earlier this week. A certain price has been included in the Gazette and he is bound by it. However, we cannot follow suit. My loss is over 1 billion. How am I to operate in that way? I'll be imprisoned and the mill will be shut down.
මාෆියාවට යට වුණා නේද ආණ්ඩුව?
ආණ්ඩුව හාල් මාෆියාවට යට වෙලා නැහැ.
ඉහළ වැඩි කරේ?
කලින් රජයේ එකඟ වෙලා
The price which the government had agreed on was 98 rupees. We discussed this with traders associations and imposed it. In a bid to grant further relief to the general public, the government attempted to reduce that price further. However, an issue arose in the market regarding the practicality of the price. This is done so that a shortage would not occur in the future. This is neither a win or a loss for anyone.
ඒක කාගේවත් ජයග්‍රහණයක් හෝ පරාජයක් නොවේ.
ඉතින් මධ්‍යම පරිමාණ කට්ටිය කිව්වනේ මන්තුමා 96ට දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
තා එහෙම සුළු පිරිසක්.
Although a minority has agreed to it, the bigger picture is different. The task force led by Basil Rajapaksa convened all stakeholders, held a discussion, and only then were the new prices introduced.
මම පාර්ශ්වයන්ම ගෙනල්ලා සාකච්ඡා කරලා තමයි මේ නව මිල ගැලපුම සිද්ධ කළේ.
අන්තිමේදී
The government had to concede in the end and dance to Dudley's tune. They knelt before rice mill owners and increased the price of rice for more than 20 million consumers to protect 5 people. The government could have exercised its powers and released the stocks of rice at mills. Instead, they keep piling on more burdens on the people.
ආණ්ඩුව මේගොල්ලෝ ළඟ දණින් වැටිලා අද රටේ ජනතාව පිට බර පටවලා තියෙනවා.
Nadu and Samba have higher consumption in the country. They have increased the price of those. However, they have further reduced 5 rupees on the rice, which cost 125 rupees, which are mainly consumed by those in the elite class. These are the superb decisions taken by a superb government. This government has plunged the destitute into further chaos while providing further benefits to the privileged.
While the sight of an elephant would please many, there is another segment of society which trembles in fear at the sight of an elephant. Meanwhile, earlier today, 2 wild elephants had fallen into the Izedi Canal.
This morning, 2 elephants fell into the Izedi Canal, which runs across Polonnaruwa and Aralagangwila. Area residents claim nearly 30 to 40 elephants fall into the canal yearly. Wildlife officials point out 12 elephants have fallen into the canal so far this year. Residents claim if stairs are built facing the Kosgaha Ulpata Reserve and the Pimburattawa Reserve, it would be easier for the elephants which fall into the canal to climb out. Finally, after a lengthy ordeal, the elephants managed to climb out. While 2 elephants fell into the Izedi Canal, an elephant calf had fallen into a well in the Pimburalegama village in Nochchiagama. Wildlife officials of Vilpattu arrived at the scene after residents notified them of the calf. The calf, which is around an year old, had fallen into the well last night. Wildlife officials were able to reunite the calf with its herd once it was rescued.
Moving on to some political news now. Samagi Jana Balavegia candidate Buddhika Pathirana has said that he would reveal the dealings that are being carried out with the government by the remaining members of the United National Party.
This tradition is no longer practiced by those who stand by the elephant symbol. There is no opportunity for talent to shine amid such traditions. A party cannot grow amid such traditions. You witnessed how such individuals were present at the Ruanwali Mahasaya the day President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took oaths as the president of this country. This is the result of their plan. We have received letters from the UNP that we have been suspended from party membership. Such letters are irrelevant to us. We have experienced these games before. If they continue with their games, we will reveal some controversial information as well.
ඉතුරු තොරතුරු ටිකත් ඉදිරියේදී අපිට ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
කක්කුසි කටවල් පිටින් ගිලපු උන්ට වැසිකිලි වලවල් පිටින් ගිලපු උන්ට අදෝවාතය කියන්නේ ගඳක් නෙවෙයි ඒක සැන්සුවඳක්. ඒ නිසා අපි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ සමාව ගන්න යන්නේ.
Meanwhile, in a letter, the leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, informed the General Secretary of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Ranjit Maduma Bandara, that his UNP membership had been cancelled. The letter claimed that Ranjit Maduma Bandara had disregarded the constitution and empowered another political party. We are not worried that such a decision was taken. This is where the United National Party is. A majority of the UNP is with us. Decisions taken by such a small group are not considered democratic. Therefore, we are not affected by such matters. We will continue with our endeavours. We established the Samagi Jana Balawegaya based on a decision taken by the Working Committee of the UNP. 80% are contesting from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, while only about 15% are contesting from the UNP. About 40 of the 69 members of the UNP's Working Committee are with us. 95% of the Pradeshia Sabha members are with us.
While Sri Lanka cricket enthusiastically pursued the construction of a new international cricket stadium at a cost of 80 million rupees in Homagama, we visited the ruins of an abandoned stadium construction site in Polonnaruwa.
Is the Hinguragoda Cricket Stadium, where Sri Lanka cricket commenced construction in 2017 with the intention of developing the sport in the region. They are trying to build the largest international cricket stadium in Colombo. For 25 years, we have had hopes that a child from Polonnaruwa will make it to the national team. In order for that to be realized, we need the infrastructure. This ground is overgrown and has become a grazing ground for cattle. We kindly call on the cricket authorities to finish what they started here. They have already spent about 90 million rupees here. If we assign Kandaya and James to the job, they will finish it for 20 million. This has not been completed properly. The president of Sri Lanka Cricket, Shammi Silva, rejected the allegation pertaining to the amount of money spent on the Hinguragoda Cricket Stadium. In truth, we have spent about 100 million. So the statement that it has cost 900 million is false. If we accept the calculations of the president of Sri Lanka Cricket, a total of 100 million rupees has been spent on the construction of this ground. In what universe does this development cost 100 million rupees? Sri Lanka Cricket promised us that the ground would be built by June 2019 with 8 turfs and that we would have the ability to play with an international team. But the contractor has as yet been unable to complete work on the water tank to supply water. Newsfirst has received much information pertaining to the estimates for cost of construction of this stadium. According to the information available, the total estimate for this project was 400 million rupees. In 2017 alone, Sri Lanka Cricket allocated a sum of 125 million rupees towards this project. The estimated payment for the consultancy firm was 18 million rupees. As at 20th May 2017, the consultancy firm had been paid 2,660,000 rupees. The SLC Executive Committee, which convened on the 20th of May 2017, had confirmed that a further payment of 9,540,000 rupees should be paid to the consultancy firm. Shouldn't an independent audit be conducted to estimate the losses incurred as a result of the abandonment of construction on this project, for which a vast sum of money has already been paid out in consultancy fees alone? This hoarding was to be put up in 2017. We are yet to receive the flex for the hoarding. I think the Regional Cricket Association in Dambulla is still printing the 2 boards. It has been 3 years now. 3 years have lapsed and all we have is the frame for the hoarding. I think if inquiries are made, you will find that the cricket board has spent 600,000 rupees on that frame alone. There are 10 international stadiums in this country. There are 5 international stadiums in Colombo. We do not need to do what other countries want. The ICC has recommended the nature of the cricket grounds we need to have in the country. For $40 million, you can build 2 or 3 decent grounds. You can build about 400 school cricket grounds. We have Ketharama, Pallakele and the Hambantota cricket grounds. I was against the construction of the Hambantota cricket ground. Today they are not even playing any matches there. In truth, we play at most about 65 international. So if we have 10 international stadiums, then each stadium can host 7 matches a year at most. Against this backdrop, what is the true responsibility of Sri Lanka cricket? Shouldn't Sri Lanka cricket be working towards improving the standards of school and first-class cricket rather than waste hundreds of millions of rupees on useless stadiums?
Fitch Ratings says that it has recalibrated its Sri Lanka national rating scale to reflect changes in the relative creditworthiness among Sri Lankan issuers following Fitch's downgrade of the country's sovereign rating to B- from B on the 24th of April 2020. The outlook on Sri Lanka's long-term issuer default rating is negative. The recalibration will result in rating actions for some issuers with Sri Lankan national ratings. These rating revisions will be announced soon. The national scale rating are a risk ranking of issuers in a particular market designated to help local investors differentiate risk. Sri Lanka's national scale ratings are denoted by the unique identifier LKA. Fitch adds that this identifier to reflect the unique nature of Sri Lanka's national scale. National scales are not comparable with Fitch's international rating scales or with other countries' national rating scales. The local multi-day fishing vessels washed away to Indonesian seas as a result of the recent cyclonic storm Amphan reached the island's shores with the help of a Sri Lankan Navy ship Samudra this evening. On the 13th of May, Cyclone Amphan turned into a super cyclone, forcing over 500 Sri Lankan multi-day fishing vessels to breach the international maritime boundary and enter Indonesian waters. The Indonesian Coast Guard permitted the fishing vessels to remain in the common maritime boundary. SLNS Samudra provided food, water, medical aid and fuel to distressed vessels until they were towed back to Sri Lanka. The Nagetemu Sri Lanka song that was meant to inspire Sri Lankans continue to send shockwaves on social media. Here tonight we leave you with another rendition of that song. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team along with our interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care and God bless.
Gunmanta Nagetemu Sri Lanka. Best YouTube video of the day.